I think for me that it's really that it is always a very practical thing to be, engaged in the process of making your work or whatever it is that you want to do. If you really want to improvise or not.
But I think it's to go more to the content than to the pragmatic reasons why it might be dreadful, etc. I would relate it to maybe Pavel's remark. It's like you were maybe not selected for the reasons you wanted to be selected for in many occasions, but still you participated. Still you, is it only merely about exposure, visibility, or is it kind of also a strategy? I will participate and my message will go through, maybe, maybe not, but at least enough. Although people, and it's also maybe interesting to tell, because you often talk about that there were so many kind of like ciphers and reasons why people invited exactly you, and you were very susceptible about it. And the first time I wanted to invite you in an art show is like the first thing you said, "Why do you want me to show?"
It's true. Um, well, look, I mean, I've had perfectly wonderful conversations with exhibition makers and curators. Uh, Probably because sometimes they were under the impression that maybe I was not Meshach, or maybe I was Meshach, or maybe I was Nicholas. I mean, those kinds of things have happened on so many occasions where, I think we are actually getting somewhere because, yes, we want to invite you, and then only to find out that actually they got the name wrong. I mean, maybe most of you don't know Meshach Gaba, but, he was with me half of the time here in the Rights Academy. But, I mean, those things happened after, we both had left. But, and then you start to realize that maybe the line of inquiry is not really, maybe not so much with what you are doing. I mean, we come from the same piece of land, the African continent, and
Some thousands of miles.
yeah, but to understand that for some people that is kind of interchangeable like that, and I mean this is something that still goes on very much actively, even as I speak, where I had that kind of collision with someone where I think they really thought I was somebody else, even though I don't look like that person. But, I spend a lot of time doing whatever it is that I do. And
Did you ever make a Meshach Gaba work in a biennial?
no, but I have been credited as Meshach Gaba in a few things. I Googled myself just to see what's going on.
That makes it really hard to withdraw, no? Are you the guy we want to invite? Well, I don't know. I mean, it completely takes the rug from under your feet, no? You can't withdraw after that.
No, but because then...
If you are not even invited.
In principle, I am invited, but it's somebody else. So, but, I think, fine. I mean, I would like to present my investigations, my work, my things, and that's fine for me. I mean, there is a platform, and I can use it to get somewhere else. That's okay.
You really see it. That's exactly what was I was trying to aim at with the question. You use it. You kind of like kidnap.
No, I use it because it's part of a barrier. It's part of a wall that I have to get to get somewhere. Because I mean, the first time I discovered, for example, that Stan Douglas was a black person was because I was sitting in an office somewhere, and then somebody got a fright because they were expecting Stan in a few weeks, and I was there. And I mean, I don't look anything like Stan, but those.
And your work is very different.
But and that happened quite early on, in my involvement with international exhibitions, that I started to realize that it really doesn't matter. I mean, I could just be beating my head up against the wall saying, I'm not that person, I'm not this, I'm not that. I'm not interested to try and convince everybody else that, they have...
Did it affect your work that you proposed in those biennials? Did you do something in your work to kind of like recuperate?
I was not so quick to think on my feet at that time, because I was busy with my own internal processes, so I took it like rain, just okay, it's happening, it will stop. but, but now it is something that I realize that it happens all the time, and I have been in shows, for example, where not necessarily biennials, but where I wasn't even told that I'm on a show, but I start to receive congratulatory letters from
Yeah,
postcards,
I want to broaden that up. It's kind of like you started your involvement in the international exhibition circuit, in fact, mostly through biennials initially, and with all this kind of misunderstandings that can happen. Is there something? There is this kind of like typical trope that happens in publications by critics and curators. Is there something what you perceive as a biennial artist or biennial art? That's why I asked, like, did it affect your work? Did you try to kind of like be debate specific, like, okay, I have to make something where it becomes very clear, that was my first question, that this is Moshe Kwalanga and not Stan Douglas, which this is sounding like something crazy, but or do you think that participating in so many of that type of exhibitions, which are very specific in a certain sense, that it kind of engenders or produces a certain type of work?
It's double bind, because at the same time, I have been invited in so many of these projects with a probably already existing project. So, I mean, I don't know if maybe those people that are making the exhibitions are very blind, because they have seen the work or they have heard of the work and they want to invite it, yet, they're talking to Meshach and they're looking at Meshach. And, that's the most common occurrence, in this regard. And no, I think the kind of works that I make, because sometimes they're so, for me, I think that they're elusive, or they're very difficult to categorize, and they also take so many forms. I mean, I do things that don't, once they are packed, they don't exist anymore as an artwork. So I don't think in my case that that I came to a point where I was producing Biennales type works. And
so, because it's to make it broader than being mistaken for Meshach, it's not. Do you think you were never invited? You were not invited for your art because they thought you were Meshach. But do you think they invited you with other projected desires? Certainly, in your very early endeavors in the biennial world, which was happening exactly after some political changes in South Africa.
I think that probably still happens quite a lot. I think maybe it's slightly unique to Southern Africa that okay, we are going to be making this thing, and we are going to have some artists from South Africa. Now, maybe it might be very wrong if we just have only white artists or only Indian artists or whatever. The easy part is that you can go to South Africa and you can make an exhibition, an African exhibition, legitimately, because it's from South Africa or it's from Africa, with totally white artists or with totally black artists. And I think that, then I suppose when people are looking at their whatever their quotas or whatever it is that they're looking at, those things come into play. Now, I'm not the person that is, on the other side to decipher or even to decide what is going on in their Mengelameng to make this mix. But it has crossed my mind that sometimes it is to even things out. And it's a very uncomfortable thing, because then it's never quite clear, if it is for the right reasons or for the wrong reasons that I get invited to take part in something.
This means that, in fact, the testimony you give here is more like there is not a big trust in organizers of exhibitions. It's more like you adopt a very philosophical attitude, like, I'll participate and I hope some of my work arrives in some minds or arrives in some experience with an audience. But I want to move it now to the agency of artists. And a very specific situation you were part of was the second Johannesburg Biennial. And I think in the second Johannesburg Biennial there was a moment, but maybe I'm completely wrong, you have to, that the artists, to say it that way, kind of like saved the curators.
Macon. Uh, well, you know, the thing is that when I had just left Johannesburg at that stage, so I was a fresh person here in the Rijksakademie. So I was not too close to the actual events leading up to what happened. But I understand that there was, for example, a very extreme hostility to having a foreign curator at that time organizing a very big event like the second Johannesburg Biennale, which, by the way, never quite happened again, and there's been many attempts to try and resuscitate it, and they were magnificent failures in some way. So I think a lot of people were very pleased to work with this gentleman, but the people that were giving the money were not they were not very welcoming, and I think it was made quite clear by some of the people that indeed they would actually participate if he was on board to work with them, at the time. But I was not actively in Johannesburg at that time.
On a general note, to move the discussion to the other main subject matter, would you put trust in an artist to curate the biennial and be invited?
Well, I think that maybe because artists are very close to whatever kinds of materials or whatever it is that they need to do to make their work, they have a good idea of what it takes to get things together, even if it's to delegate whatever it is. I would be very open to that because I would imagine that they would be kinder to me. But I don't know. We will see.
I would like to have a little chat with Elena about working with artist curators. So in a certain way, you adopted a position which is also done before, like a meta position as a curator, to invite also artists to curate parts of exhibitions or curate exhibitions, change exhibitions. It's been done in institutional programs to invite artists to curate shows, and you made this wonderful, fantastically original Felix González Torres retrospective, which was long overdue in Europe for sure. But you advanced a concept in which you allowed the show to change halfway, completely. The first part is curated by yourself, displayed by yourself, and the second part was it was Danvo, Carol Bové, and Tino Segal. Could you talk about that experience and what probably what interests us most is what is the difference? What is the curator show? What is the artist show? Or it is probably not as simple as that.
Well, I would say that in terms of how one gets there as a curator, because you would imagine that a curator, the only job we have to do really, and it's a complicated enough job, is to organize exhibitions. We don't also have artistic practices, or for the most part, we don't. You would think you'd want to hold very tight onto that role. But actually, I've been very interested for a long time in the history of artist-curated exhibitions. And also I think it's a way of putting curators in their place to understand that, from the very beginning of time, if you will, artists have been refusing the institutional forms that have been given to them when, if you think about something as simple as, 1855, Courbet kind of organizing his own rogue pavilion.